Hello guys, I'm working on a client application called Maya Pro, and just to give you some context, I've created an admin feature to allow administrators of this system to upload files, CSV files. These are questions related to this feature. The context is that these questions are exported from a different system which doesn't have an API to do this automatically, so administrators will have to upload this manually by themselves. And what I decided to do is to store these questions in our database with an external ID referring back to the original ID of the export from the other system. Now, because it's just CSV files, there's a lot of manual errors involved, quite probably, at certain times. And what I try to do here is to actually avoid conflicts and provide some strategies if conflicts happen to allow the administrators to overcome them. And I've created a test which is quite long. It covers for a few features. Let me just drive you through these. So the first bit is covering that administrators are the only ones who can upload these RFP questions as a CSV. And these questions are connected to the reference architecture, to one or more architecture items, so we've got coverage for that. And the main thing why we are here now is the last bit, when conflicts happen. So the idea is that when the administrator uploads a file, we check whether or not we already have the external ID in our database. If we do, that's a conflict, and we offer multiple choices, multiple strategies to overcome these problems. Obviously, we have to report this back on the front end of this application, saying we found these conflicts, and on the front end we will allow the administrator to select a strategy of overcoming that particular conflict, and this can be one of two strategies as at the start. One is going to be ignoring this conflict. It means that even if the CSV file contains that ID, we're just going to skip that when processing the CSV. The other is when we overwrite the previous entry in our database. So say this would be a good feature if the other system had this record updated and say the title changed or the body of the question changed. Then with the next export we can allow administrators to update our system at the same time by overwriting the existing record. So it's not going to change the referential integrity, but it's going to update the titles, and this is one less thing they have to do manually. Obviously there can be multiple conflicts in one upload, and we allow them to select the strategies individually on the front end. And then we've got two more things what we are looking for, trying to avoid. Say if there were 3 conflicts and they only mark 2 as resolved, then we can't proceed, so we have a test for that. And there is yet another test if the conflict resolving settings on the front end comes back as invalid, they try to tamper with it or something. This is, for example, when, say we have a conflict for external ID 101, and then when we try to resubmit this upload and resubmit this these questions, we have a conflict for 101, but we have a resolving strategy set for 102. That means it's invalid because it not covers whatever we have conflicting, so we just have to cancel everything out and not to process the uploaded CSV and report it back to the front end. So we've got all these tests, and all these tests are working just fine. But what I ended up with is a pretty gross controller function, which is, as you can see, it's 80 lines worth of code in the store function, and it's really gross to be looking at. And I think this is time to refactor this and try to do whatever we can to make this nice and readable. Now, what we have here is again working, but it's not something that you could read and process in your mind just very easily. So we have to go through that. So what we are doing here is are these things. We're gonna have a set default answer type. Don't worry about this. In the future, this will be multiple types of answers for each questions. So currently, the upload is not taking care of this. We're just gonna have one in the database, and we're gonna hard code it with every processing. So the next thing is to actually go through this CSV file, the upload, and gather all the questions into a collection. So these are the questions we are going to process. And then the next thing we do is we check whether all architecture IDs in the reference architecture exist in the system. So say if we've got IDs 1, 2, 3 as an architecture item, and they try to upload a question which is meant to be connected to ID number 4, which doesn't exist in our system, we have to report this back and cancel everything out. So this is the part which takes care of that. And then we start looking for conflicts, and you can see that this is a pretty good part of this actual controller method. Right, so we just gather the conflicting IDs, and if there is any, then we do a lot of things here. So I'm just gonna go through each of them, and we're just gonna build up our conflicts. Each conflict will have a reason. This is by the way just a simple DTO. It has a reason. It has the existing question, which is coming from the database, and it has the uploaded question, which is the same model, but it's not stored in the database just yet. So that's all we have to know about this class. But we just build this up right here into the conflicts, then we can start working with it. And then we get the resolving parts of the actual request, and just go through them and see what we can resolve, avoid a few problems, like if there was nothing resolved, or if we've got a missing ID which wasn't resolved, then we're just going to report back the original errors and give it back to the user. On the other hand, if we can resolve this, we're going to resolve this. And this is the ignore bit. If we have to ignore one of the rows or either of the rows, we're just going to remove this from the questions, and then we process the remainder of the questions, and we're going to update or create. So if it was resolved by overwriting it, it will still update the actual instance. If it wasn't resolved, or if it doesn't exist, and we're just gonna go ahead and create it with these details, and then we just make the connection to the actual architecture item, and then we return back to the user whatever we need to. So this is pretty bad to be looking at, so let's see what we can do with it. This is not a rehearsed recording, so I'm gonna be doing the thinking out loud as well and see where we get to. The only thing we know is that we've got this test proving that the system works as intended, and we're going to be running these tests well during this refactoring. The first thing I'm looking at here is as this log, when we actually get the questions out of the actual uploaded file. So why don't we just get this out into its own method, not like this, but like this. We can say extract request and questions from request, something like that. I think that would work. And this is supposed to create private function. Let's see, we're still where we are. Good. Let's see if we can clean this up a little bit more. So we've got a collection of questions. We've got the header. The first line is going to be the header, and the rest is going to be the collection. So we're just going to call each line as we progress through the actual CSV lines, and we're just going to append this to the actual collection object, questions object, sorry, and we're just going to key it to the actual index of the header. So what it does is we're going to have the headers, so just a little context, we're going to have the headers in the first row, and then what we end up doing is, if I just show it to you, we're just going to key the actual content as per the header in each and every row. So we've got the keys matched up at this moment in time by the time we finish here, and then we can return those results. I think this is good enough, I'd say. Unless we want to do this in 2 lines, but I think that's fairly straightforward. That's not the worst part of this code, so I think we're good with this. Let's move forward. Okay, what do we do here? Check whether all architecture IDs actually exist. That means we bring back all the existing IDs from the architecture items, and then we check all the IDs that were uploaded. We're gonna do a grouping of some sort, so we're gonna separate these into existing or missing. So if I just go like this, we can have the existing IDs, and then if one weren't found, it would have a missing key under these items. So if grouped has key missing, then we're just gonna abort out and give them a reasonable response or a reasonable error. So what we could do is we're gonna use the questions. So I think what we can do instead of doing this, but if we were to be doing something like this, has missing architecture items, given the questions, and then just give this back. But the actual response contains something from this grouped bits. This might not be the best option to If we could do instead, I'm thinking that if we need this grouped, we can give it a nicer name, and we can instead of calling it grouped, we could be calling it yeah, that's not bad. I think we probably could still use this. What if we do something like this? Missing. We're gonna get back. Probably what we're gonna get back is a collection. So bear with me on this one. Okay, let's go with the first approach. So if we call this grouped, rename this grouped to be, this is a grouping. What if, because you're not using the existing parts, what if we would change this to only return those that are missing and have that as a collection? And then we could test for that count and use its items. So if we were to do something like this, if we were to get this into private function, say find missing actual nodes. Let's see, and it returns this grouped part. Okay, let's do this in 2 steps. So if grouped is that, and then we have the original way of going about it, it should still work, right? So if we were to change this to missing, and say missing count, or we could also say not missing, it's empty. We could do this instead, and instead of map to groups, we could do something like okay, we've got the existing nodes and we've got the uploaded node IDs. So what we could do, we could probably just reject. So do something like this, return uploaded architecture node IDs, but reject those that are not in this existing architecture node IDs group. So return, or actually reject those which are in there. Say existing architecture node IDs contains uploaded ID. So if I'm not mistaken, and I didn't mess anything up here. Should still work, and it does. So this is a bit nicer, and I think our API up here is a little bit nicer. And yeah, we can start to group this a little bit better. Okay, let's go forward and see what we can do. Testing whether the upload contains a conflict. So we've got the conflicting IDs, and let's just have a look at the conflicting IDs. Yeah, let's just pick a test which has some conflicts in it towards the end. So these are really just the IDs, so the naming is not bad. Okay, so we could extract this in a method, and then what we do, we're gonna have the conflicts, and then we're gonna use those. We're gonna build those conflicts, and then we will attempt to resolve the conflicts. Okay, what if up to this part we would call a method to as we did find missing architecture nodes. We could do conflicts just by find conflicts, doing something like this, conflicts. Let's find conflicts, and what we will need to have as then is the questions to that. Right, so let's go down. Let's do something very similar. What we're gonna have find conflicts here, and we're gonna bring in some of that code from above. So we're gonna have to have the IDs, and then from the IDs we're gonna build up the conflicts, and then we're just gonna get that back. So what we are doing here is we're gonna get the existing question IDs from the database. We're gonna have the uploaded question IDs from the questions, and we're gonna extract the conflicting IDs, and for each of these conflicting IDs we're gonna build up a collection. Right, so we don't need this if statement anymore, and we can return that collection without changing any of this just yet. And then as we have the conflicts here, we can do if conflicts is empty, if not empty, then we can start working with these conflicts, and we won't need these lines either, and hopefully I'll still give it green. Cool. And what we do here, we try to resolve these conflicts. So first of all, we're gonna check whether we had a missing conflict. Missing, I'm not even sure what the word. If we did not resolve either of the conflicts based on the request. Some kind of thinking this could be extracted to its function somehow. I'm wondering if it's premature at this stage. Let's see, what do we do? Again, it's the same thing, we're trying to map this to a group, but we're never gonna use the resolved group. We are just interested whether we have one that didn't resolve or weren't resolved. Any of them that weren't resolved. So what we're gonna do here, I think, is that we're trying to get these resolved conflicts from probably a method. Does this belong there? I'm wondering. Okay. So here we bail out based on what we have here, but we need this. Do we need this? Resolved. I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere else. So we only need to do this if we bail out. So we're not even using that. So certainly we are only interested in this part. So what we could do here is get those that are not resolved, and if there are any unresolved, we can do this, rename it so it makes more sense, and then get this into method. And unresolved conflicts. Let's see what it does. So we could just easily return this. And then we needed the conflicts as a parameter, so that's fine. Let's see, unresolved, find unresolved conflicts. I think we are still at green, should be. And instead of doing this, we can do the same what we did above. What we could do is, instead of grouping these or portioning this into two, we could say check whether or not this is empty. So instead of partitioning this, we could just do a reject, and we can reject based on resolve has conflict existing question external ID. So if we have the appropriate ID, then we should just be able to do this. And the test says I'm right and I didn't mess this up, which is good. Okay, let's move forward. So next thing I'm looking at this is, it's kind of the same. So what I'm saying here is, if there were conflicts, right? Conflicts not empty, but there were nothing resolved. So this one will give me back all the conflicts that weren't resolved. So what if I would remove this? I think this will still give me back the same results, which is great. and instead of this in a line, I don't think I'm using it anywhere else. Yeah, I do it here. Okay, I was almost inlining that. Okay. Anyway, we remove that from the if statement. Let's see what we do here. Here we do resolve those. So that doesn't look really nice. Let's see what we can do. Resolve, and we're trying to get the actual key. Okay, so we're going through all the conflicts we had. We are checking whether the resolve array has that key. Probably it would be a bit nicer if we could use the actual API of that collection. It's a bit easier to read, and what we are doing is we're gonna reject that from these questions. Right. Another approach would be is to find all of these keys that were marked to be ignored. Right? So because at this stage we have passed on all verifications, so the data is fine what we have. So we don't necessarily have to loop through and everything, but we could just get all the keys where these were ignored and do this in one step instead of overwriting and overwriting and overwriting if you had a lot of ignored questions, right? So I believe what we could do is ignored or to be ignored. We could name this. I could get resolve find. Actually, before doing this, let's just see what that contains. So we've got the external ID and the actual value. Okay, let's just have a quick look. How can we find those results? Common internet. Right, so we are looking for collections and especially on the available methods. Can we do this with a find? I'm sure you know. I don't, unfortunately. Where is that? Doesn't. We could do where. Price 100, but what happens if I don't have keys? Let's just try to. Didn't do anything. Good. Okay. Then we have to do it with a filter. So to be ignored, it's gonna be a filter which takes the actual strategy, and we're just gonna return where the strategy equals to be ignored. And let's see. Okay, let's find the test. we have ignoring going on overwrite ignore. Here we go. This test will do for us. Okay, so we get back the correct one. Do we have one? Okay, it has both. So the filter worked just fine. I like to do these small tests before I jump, because it helps identifying a problem before you get lost in the weeds. Okay, next. These are the ones to be ignored. So we could do this in one step. Yeah. So the questions are going to be rejected if the question ID what was this to be ignored? I need the keys of that, right? Yes. I could do that, or I could just do has, say, to be ignored has question ID. Actually, I don't even need this anymore. I think this should get us back to green, and it does. So we can remove this completely. And we reduce the complexity quite a bit. Let's see what else can we do here. Let's move over. For each question, so for the remainder of the questions, we're gonna update or create these in the database, just add them to the, connect them with the actual architecture node, and then return the right thing. Okay, we are getting there, guys. Let's go over once again, because this is still quite a lot to digest at once. Right, let's make sure we are running from green. So we're gonna get the questions from the request, and we're gonna find the missing architecture nodes and then bail out. Can we do something about this? Has missing architecture nodes. This is gonna be an error. And this is a redirect back, so we can't really do an abort here or something like that. We're gonna get the guard against. The problem is, I don't think if I would just take this all out, this return would work, because this return then would mean it's a return from a function. We can try. Let's just call it test. And pass in the questions. I'm only going this far. Questions. Let's just have a little go. Yes. So unfortunately, this won't cut it. Right, so we can't do a return redirect from here. Okay, let's just go back where we were. I still feel like I'm missing an abstraction here. Okay, anyway, then we try to find the conflicts, and if those are not empty, we will try to resolve them. And this again looks like that we do a return from here, a redirect. So, it's a bit hard. For me to go around this. I'm sure there is a way, just can't seem to pop into my mind at this time. Can we do anything? Can we do anything? Could we shift this to somewhere? We could move these bits down to the very bottom, so we could actually get these shortened here. The only problem I have with that approach is that, say you've got a missing item, we can give a response really early because we know it at this point. If we were to do all this lot before giving back this response, then yeah, we just made the admin wait for no reason. Right? I'm kind of thinking that this line is being here because we need this. So the IDs. So if this find missing architecture nodes would indeed report back this ID, then we could eliminate this bit and just probably this approach would help a little bit with this part. So let's just think about it. So we've got conflicts, which is fair enough, and we can try to resolve those conflicts. We can, instead of giving back a call action, we could actually just give back null if there weren't any, instead of an empty call action, and just use it straight. So we would lose this line, still be readable, and then we try to or attempt to resolve those. And then we have these conflicts, and this is the actual this is all the conflicts we have to report back. So if we were to move this out of here, I think that would be a good approach. Okay, let's start up here. So this we could do something like this. There you go. If this has missing architecture nodes, and then we give it the questions, then we could just say notes, or we could call it node IDs to be a bit more descriptive, and get all this into that. So I'm just gonna do private function has missing architecture nodes, and we can give it the questions. Do this. So find the missing architecture nodes, and if not empty, then we're gonna return those nodes formatted. Right, let's see if we made a mistake. No. Okay. Just gonna give back missing architecture nodes. Missing architecture IDs. Maybe something like that would have or could have. Let's rename this get or find missing architecture item IDs or architecture node IDs. Yes, I'd like to refactor that. Thank you. Let's see. All good. That's nicer. Then we find the conflicts, and if not empty, what if these conflicts would be null instead of this? Then we could do something like this. If conflicts, say find conflicts, we wouldn't return the conflicts, but we would return something like that. I think we're still at green. We are. And then what we do is we try to resolve those conflicts. And we try to find unresolved ones and bail out. Then we try to do this. Now, as we refactor this, I'm not that worried that it's gonna take a long time. So I'm happy to even move this up and above this bailout, and I think that wouldn't change a thing, and it doesn't. Right, now what we could do instead of doing this is then unresolved this whole if statement could go to a private method like this one and do something like this. If this unresolved conflicts equals this, find unresolved conflicts, which we have that name. Okay, let's just rename this for now. So find unresolved conflicts. It's not actually finding unresolved conflicts, but trying to map Let's just give it whatever name we have now. Make sure we didn't break anything. Okay. Unresolved conflicts. Find unresolved conflicts. Then we could bail out and report those unresolved conflicts back to the user and get all of this out of there. Find unresolved conflicts. Right. We're gonna have to get those questions in. And I think we passed it through. No, we didn't. Questions. Okay. Let's see what else. We've got this. Got this request. I don't like to be reaching out to the request, and I hope. Oh yes, I did. Did on other places as well. Okay. We're gonna have to come back to this and have a look at those later. Okay, so we're grabbing the resolve, trying to get the unresolved conflicts. Let's see what we do there. So, do we have to do this separately? Passing in those, or could we just get rid of this entirely? And where are we? And do this right here. So we're gonna have these conflicts. Let's see what are to be ignored. And then we've got this questions bit where we have to ignore them. I'm so glad we've got the tests because I'm kind of lost a little bit now. I think I just moved too much stuff in here for now. So if we've got this resolved conflicts, questions to be ignored, and then we bail out. So we're bailing out of that, right? So what we do, if we get unresolved conflicts, we have to bail out with all the conflicts we had before. So all we need to do is as we find conflicts, try to see which ones are resolved, and if there are any unresolved, then we're just gonna bail out. So in fact, this is what I would need to be dropping out there. I'm somewhat lost, so just bear with me on this, alright? So this is the old stuff. So found conflicts. This isn't really a find, is it? It's really a build. So we build all those conflicts. Which we used to do here. So we only need to do this if we have conflicts at all. And if we were to, instead of giving the questions back, well, if we were to give the conflicts in, so we could give the conflicts and we would just be where we were, right, currently. Somewhat I lost the plot here, bear with me. So if we have unresolved conflicts, we bail out. Otherwise, we could use this up here. That wasn't that the original plan. So this resolve, this was in the request. So if we grab that from the request like this, and we pass it in instead, right? Then we can also use it here, and then we got these questions. And in this unresolved conflicts, what we need to do is find conflicts. What do we need these questions for? So we're not going to use them up here, so we don't really use these questions for anything apart from this. So I think if we were just to get this back out here, I do another if statement, we might do another round on this. So we only have to do this if we had conflicts. If we give instead of that but the conflicts in there, we can bail out early, and we need to get that resolve in there as well. So here we've got the conflicts and resolve. So all this is going to do for us is try to find this and return if not empty unresolved, which is going to be returning unresolved. I think if we do that, stay up here. I'm not sure if it's green. Oh yes, it's not. Okay, so let's see. We find the questions or conflicts. Then we find these unresolved conflicts, and then we try to bail. Then we see, okay, whatever we've got ignore, we can just ignore and then deal with those. Well, I don't know. Let's see what the problem here is. Unexpected conflicts, and that is test 207. Test 207. Let's see what in is that. So master session missing conflicts. So we gave the session conflicts. So we bailed because we had unresolved conflicts. We shouldn't have had, probably. So let's see the test again. Allows resolving a conflict by overwriting the record when a question already exists in the database. So this is trying to resolve the conflict. So we have the conflicts, we try to find unresolved conflicts, and we say, okay, for all the conflicts, we try to resolve them, and we check whether resolve has the external ID. So empty. Didn't mean to do this. Why didn't he say so? I don't think this fixes the problem though. Yes, it did. Okay, let's see the other problem then. Okay, so it reports all conflicts back unless every conflict has been resolved. So that's line 383. Let's see, 383. Okay, we asserted that we've got 2 conflicts. And in fact, we have 1. We have 1 conflict. So let's see this test. So we've got in the database an external ID 101 and 102. We try to upload 101 and 102. And we said we're gonna overwrite 101. So this is a resolved conflict, but we are missing this one. So because this was invalid and we weren't resolving all of those, we should have reported back 2 conflicts still, so they can change their mind on this one. As we are not partially storing anything or partially processing anything, so this until all the conflicts are solved, this stays a conflict. Apparently, we're only reporting back 1 conflict instead of 2, which is, if I find it, find unresolved conflicts. The problem is we only give that only 1 back, and we really should give both of them back. So if I'm not mistaken, this we are not even interested in, because here we need to give conflicts back, and I think that will fix the problem. So we are not even interested in that, so we can simplify this to has unresolved conflicts. If I go down, I can say has unresolved conflicts, and we can just return this. And I think we're still at green, and we are. Okay. Right. So we've got these conflicts. Then we bail if we have unresolved ones. And we can still bail down at the end. Right? Yes. So I can try to do all this lot after this. But the questions we will have to manipulate. And this, we have to manipulate the questions. I think what we could do, have this bail. This doesn't make sense to pull down anymore, because then we start to pass things in by reference and it's gonna get modified, and then you're gonna get lost if you're not already. Okay, so let's do it again. This bit can be a little bit improved, I think. So if we have to ignore one, we just have to to get those questions back which are not ignored. So we can do it here, or we can extract it to a method. So it would be questions this. What would be a good name? Get questions to update, or questions to process. Would that be? Would that be something we could do? Let's just build that. Questions to process. We're gonna give it the questions and whatever we need to be able to resolve which ones we need. But not resolve, return rather. Sorry. So we're still at green. We're gonna come back to this in a second. Let's see. We can still get this out to process question. I think it would be just fine. And we are still at green. Okay. Right. At least we fit on one screen now. Let's see what else we can do here. So we're gonna get these questions out of the request. And then we use that here. We use them here. And then we reduce them here. Okay. Right. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull this up right on top. It's not gonna make a difference. Right? We're gonna extract the CSV or the questions from the request. What I'd rather do, instead of reaching out to the request here, is to pass that in. So extract questions, I would probably rename that the from path, or from even CSV path. Yes, please refactor. And give it the path. Right, we can add that to the block comment and give the request path here. I think we're still at green, right? I don't really like this being here either. And I'll think about that in a second. So what we do here, we've got the questions, we've got those resolved. Resolved. I want to rename this. Probably probably call it resolved conflicts, and I think it probably would like to change this request as well to resolved. So let's go back to the test and let's find all of those resolved instances. Test, resolve, right? Resolved conflicts. Let's call it at that. And let's call it that here as well. Cool. So these are the resolved conflicts we have. So you're gonna find conflicts. If it has unresolved conflicts, then we bail out. Otherwise, we can reduce the questions to process. And then for each of those questions, we're gonna process that question. And then we're gonna return something back. Okay, so again, we grab things from the request. Then we guard against missing architecture nodes. Then we find the conflicts we have. Then we guard against unresolved ones. And then we restrict those questions to process. I don't really like this name, but questions to process. Questions to process. Resolved questions, maybe. Resolved questions to process. I'm not entirely sure. Something like limit questions to process or limited. I'm not even sure. I don't think it's anything better than that, so let's just stick with this for now. And then we go through on all questions we have, and we're just gonna process each of them with the default answer type ID, which I don't like, and then we return the happy path response. I don't think it can get any better than that, but this default answer type ID, I don't like it up here, not at all. So what we're gonna do is probably we can do one or two things. We can default this in the database for now, but what I don't like is that it's harder to change the database structure when in production, and it's more risky as well than changing source code. So I've refrained from that, even that having a default there would not cause any problems even if we change that. We could add this to the model itself, but the reason I don't want to give it to the model is that at some point in the future, in this CSV upload, they're gonna have to specify the actual type of that question. So imagine a question with an answer possibilities of yes or no, or another question where you have select options, multiple. So that's why they will have to specify this. So I think for now, instead of doing that up here and passing it in, we could probably just hide all that lot here and say static default answer type ID, or we could say I'm not even sure how this works, to be honest. First of all, we will need that up here for sure. Not anymore. So default answer type ID. I think I should be monitoring the database for this to see how many queries we've got. But I think this is how it works. Actually, is it? It does work. But let's test this out. Let's just go. Let's just go back to the test. This is an experiment, right? Let's just do TP listen. Is it how it's done? No. Let's see the docs. So I know we can listen for DB events. Testing, database, testing. Assertions. Probably it's not that. Okay, let's have a look at the API. Listen, dispatcher, connect. Later is connection, listen. That's the one we want. And we've got a closure callback. Okay, I didn't make much progress here, did we? Maybe listen function. And I think all we need is really, I think the first parameter in is the SQL, so we could just log the SQL query. And let's just empty this out. Add this notification. We can just give it the storage add logs. Get rid of that. And let's see how many queries we've got. Oh, query executed couldn't be converted to string. Okay, let's just line down what we get here. Simplest thing. So what we have is SQL first. No, actually, the arguments, the first is the query itself. And then at the bottom, do we have anything else? Or we just have the query? It might have changed, I'm sure it had multiple arguments in. So this was the query. So we could log the query SQL. So if I were just to do this again, query executed SQL, undefined method. Let's just construct. Very good. That's better. Right, so we're gonna log this one out. And let's find the test actually, which has multiple IDs. So this is 2 IDs. This is a failure actually. The first one has 2 IDs. SR2, so we can test with this one. So that we can run this particular one. And we've got a log. And we've got quite a few queries. What I'm looking for is the query to get the first one. So we've got RFP questions, answer types, limit 1. And we've got here and here. So unfortunately, this doesn't work as such. You can give it to the comments and teach me how to do this. But obviously what we can do is we can do cache. I don't like that because it might affect others and that sort of thing. But we can definitely do a static thing on this controller. For instance, I can do this. Save default answer type ID. Save default. Actually, I was meant to do that. Default answer type ID is gonna be the query, and here we could use that like this. And if I'm just gonna get rid of this log file and run this again, probably doesn't find this one. Say primary static default answer type ID. Get rid of this log file before I run it. Here we come. Let's see this log. And we only see once RFP answer types limit 1. So that's good. We save the query there. Not that it would make a huge difference, but the bigger difference it makes is that the actual controller method got 1 line shorter, while one call to a private function got 1 parameter shorter, so that's a good refactor, I think. Right, so let's go through again. So we've got these questions, we've got the resolved conflicts. We check for missing architecture nodes with the questions, which is fine. Then we try to look for conflicts. If we have unresolved ones, we bail. Then we just reduce the questions, so we remove those which are to be ignored. Which wants me to think about something else. What if we could resolve those right up here, and then we can do this bail a lot shorter. I am not entirely sure. I think the reason why we can't do that is because we use the questions here to find the conflicts, and remember we want to report back all the conflicts. So if we were to remove the ignored ones, then it's gonna be a problem. So we can't do that, so that's fine down here. Then we loop through and process all the questions. But remained, we could actually put this in its own method. Say process questions, and then put all this, and then redirect back. I'm not sure if that would be very good refactor. It wouldn't really have too much, and it would be one layer deeper. So, well, in most cases or some cases, I would call for that. In this particular case, I don't mind having a for each here. I'm not sure if you agree or not. I don't want to go that far. So, what I would like to do is look through on all these and make sure they are in order. Right? So, extract questions from CSV path is the first. We want to look through. So, I like to have these in order. I think let's just run this once again. Yeah, we are at a green state, so it's all good to shift things around. Here we go. Next one. Do we have anything in here? No, we don't. Right. Next one should be find missing architecture node IDs, which it is not. So here it comes. Being moved up. Right. I shall just close this one. Close this one. Still good before closing this one. Find missing architecture nodes. That should be next one now. Find missing architecture nodes. Right. So that's there. Right. So I shall close these two. And let's see what's next. Find conflicts. Here come our next one in this list. I know some would call me OCD, and you know what? You're bloody right. Okay. This we can close up. Next one is has unresolved conflicts. It's gonna be the next one in that list. And we can close this up. Questions to process. Is that the next one? Yeah, and then process question. And that's the very last. And we have everything in order now in this. And we are still at green. And let me publicly agree with Jeffrey Way. He was talking about in one of his podcasts, and I think in one of his Loracast episodes as well, that he said, and it's not always the case, right? Because sometimes you have your reasoning, or where you need something, but in most cases, what's not important is not needed, and it's just clutter, and it's just visual depth. So when you come here and have to look through these are in this very example we have here doesn't hold any information, so I'm not really interested. I've got enough knowledge in here to know that okay, this path param must be a string and must be passed in, and what I get back is a collection. And if I start to look into these questions, I'll still be able to see if I need to see that this is a collection. Apparently, I can't see it with these questions, for instance, because I'm not using it as a collection anywhere, to be honest. But if I would have to see it, if I was using it as a collection, I would know it anyway, straight away. So this is all considered visual clutter to me at this moment in time. Yes, you can say documentation and stuff, but this to me is not considered documentation that really counts. So as long as you find right names, it's fine. Now, on the contrary, if I were to put this code and generate automatic documentation, I'll straight away go ahead and create doc blocks for each of these methods. I wouldn't like to do it here. Also, another thing which I might consider at a later time, there's quite a lot of things going on here as private functions. It feels a bit that I might be missing an abstraction here. I could extract some of these out to the relevant models, for instance, or I could extract these out to just a utility class which would take care of storing and uploaded CSV and ensuring that these are working fine. For now, I'm happy to leave these here in the controller. These are all private functions. It's not affecting really the RESTful API I'm trying to achieve here, the store function. So I'm actually happy with that as is, and tests are running. So I think we've come a long way. This Word's coming, and I think my last commit was to allow this, so I would commit it as refactor. What would I commit this? Questions controllers to refactor the upload method. Refactor. Refactor. I don't know. You have for a good name? Refactor, refactor, refactor. The RFP question upload process might not be the best name. If I come up with a better one, I will do it as a rebase. I'm working on a feature branch, so I've got that thing. So this is what we have. And let me just copy this out, and let me just get back to the previous commit. So can I just check out the previous? Yeah, check out. Yeah. If we compare the two, right, so in the original we had a lot of lines, we had the CSV export in here, we had the actual architecture ID checks, all these things we extracted out, and this is really a mess. And what we achieved here, I think, is much more concise, much more readable, much more nicer. So I think all in all, it was a great refactor. So see you next time.